So about an hour and a half ago, the ICJ handed out its ruling on the case between South Africa and Israel. And when I say it handed down its ruling, what I mean is that it came to a conclusion about whether or not to implement provisional measures and what kind of provisional measures. So here are my 2 cents about what this means for the current state of the war in Gaza. The first thing to notice is that, yes, the court said provisional measures are adequate. I'll talk about this in a second. But on the other hand, it didn't actually go along with what South Africa demanded. The main demand by South Africa was that the court should call for a ceasefire as a provisional measure in order to protect the Palestinians and in order to prevent harm that could come to them by not doing so. Because under the Genocide Convention, South Africa argued there is a real danger that a genocide is actually happening. South Africa argues there is a genocide taking place, and the provisional measures are meant to prevent harm from occurring until a final verdict is reached. These provisional measures are supposed to kick in already before the court has reached a final decision. This is very important. The court was not asked to judge whether or not genocide is actually taking place. It was just asked to find whether or not it is credible that genocide could be happening at the moment. And actually the court said, yes, it is possible that what we are witnessing at the moment is genocide. We can be sure. And the court, especially toward the end, Judge Donahue, the American judge, who's the presiding the ICJ at the moment, she said very clearly that the current verdict doesn't pass judgment on Israel. It just says that the claim that South Africa makes is not nonsense. It is possible that actually genocide is taking place, and therefore, in order to protect the potential victims of what could be a genocide, certain provisions have to be implemented. It ordered those provisions. Now, these provisions do not include a ceasefire. And that's really too bad. That's really too bad, because the provisions that the court handed out basically say that Israel has to prevent genocide from happening and has to comply with the Genocide Convention, which in fact Israel already claims it's doing. Israel has been saying that it is not in breach of the Genocide Convention, that it has said it's not committing a genocide, but that everything that it's doing is in harmony with all of the international law. So by virtue of the court saying you have to apply to comply with international law, it just opens the door to Israel saying like, yeah, we've been complying with international law all the way along, so shut up. I mean, why are you being noisy? We are not doing anything wrong anyhow. And well, that's too bad. There's no real operational kind of measures that would change the fate of the Palestinians and of Gaza immediately. The only thing is that the verdict actually demands that Israel compile a report about how it intends to, or how it is complying with the court's order. And that's as flimsy as it gets. Even if maybe Israel won't even compile a report, but even if it does, it can just compile a report about any kind of nonsense of protecting civilians through some orders of mid-level militaries, or even like citing Netanyahu, who says maybe we shouldn't kill civilians, but what happens on the ground can then be something completely different, and that would still count as being in compliance with the ICJ orders. So while there is very good, a lot of good aspects in the ICJ ruling, don't get me wrong, I am very happy that the ICJ actually did decide to have provisional measures, but the ones that they did rule are so flimsy that it's really hard to see how the Security Council, even if the Security Council was willing to act upon these provisions, how that would give the Security Council something tangible to work with in order to put pressure on Israel, because Israel now has a huge loophole to get out, because it can anytime say that, okay, we're actually complying with everything already anyhow. There's no provisions that are verifiable very easily to put to assess whether or not Israel is complying or not. I mean, at any point now, Israel really can just say like, yeah, we're complying anyhow, so everything is fine. And we've compiled a report that shows that we have measures in place to not kill civilians indiscriminately, even though the indiscriminate killing is clearly happening, and that to me, it seems that will then should satisfy the demands of the court. Now, on the other hand, what is really good about the verdict is that Israel tried to get away with murder, tried to get away with genocide by arguing that the court has no jurisdiction because there has not been a previous dispute between South Africa and Israel, and the court clearly dismissed that. The court said, no, we've established that there was a previous dispute, and that the Genocide Convention does apply, and the court also judged that it is possible that genocide is happening. This is not trivial. The Judge Donoghue actually cited several instances that prove that on the highest level of Israeli government there were genocidal statements made from several people, from the Minister of Defense to other cabinet ministers, that prove the potential intent of Israel to commit genocide, and that therefore the court is competent, and that this case will also go on. So the court will hear more arguments from both sides on why this should be treated under the Genocide Convention. So this is definitely a positive outcome, but really there's nothing tangible. Although all of the human rights lawyers and defenders of the Palestinians can now point toward the court and say that even this court found that a genocide might potentially be going on, the actual measures, the operational measures that the court handed down are so weak that even if somebody decided, even if the Security Council decided to act, it couldn't really, there's just so many ways to get around that very vague formulation of those provisional measures, that it's really hard to see how anything could change, even if there was a will to implement what the court said. So in a sense, the court is, while it is saying that what's going on is absolutely horrible and has reached the level of potential genocide, it also kind of went around the job of trying to put a halt to this. Not that it could have done that in the first place, because it was always clear that Israel would continue its genocidal assault anyhow. But there could have been much stronger language. A much stronger language of the court would have made it easier for advocates of Palestinian rights, and especially for these massive human rights protests that are going on, to actually use this as a precedent to push for political changes in their home countries. Then again, this might be something that the court actually wanted to avoid, because it is a court of law and not a court of public opinion. So I'm not entirely sure what to make out of it, but I am partially happy. Had the court ruled that it is not competent, or not that the Genocide Convention doesn't apply, I mean, international law would, to me, have lost all and every last little bit of sense that there was to it. So the court decided that no, the ICJ here clearly has jurisdiction, and international law matters. On the other hand, it's kind of weaseling out of any kind of real world implications and like decisions that would have real world implications. I guess that's the best that we can have. The court definitely proves that there is reason in having an ICJ, that an international law approach can work, and we all must congratulate South Africa and everybody who supported South Africa. Without them, we wouldn't have even this little shred of hope that at some point justice will be done, and that through the international system, it is possible to put immense pressure on a genocidal regime, and seriously a nation that has lost its way in basic humane approach to other people. The things that the state of Israel is doing to Palestine is so utterly horrible that it really can only be compared to the crimes that the Nazis 80 years ago committed to the Jews. And luckily the court found that this Genocide Convention that was created in the wake of the Holocaust actually finds application here. Nothing concrete coming out of it. Well, that's what it is. But international law applies, and it applies to Israel too. That is a very important finding here, and we'll see how it will go on.